There is a famous quote from the late Zaha Hadid, the queen of curves in architecture, and someone who has introduced a new language of design in architecture which says, if you want an easy life, do not become an architect. As an insider and someone who has gone through 5 years of architecture education in the UK and then working in high-end architectural practices, I want to reveal what it's actually like to study architecture and work as an architectural assistant, so that you know what is waiting ahead of you in the best years of your life. I have definitely went through tons of good and bad experiences during my architecture career. I can't lie that I also suffered from mental health issues, mostly because of the pressure of work in uni. But there has also been founding moments which completely changed my approach and thinking towards architecture and what I wanted to do as an architect. I have a lot to share with you, so if you think these discussions are for you, then stick around until the end of this video, as I will reveal some insider opinion from my personal experience with you, so that hopefully you can decide if architecture education is for you or not. Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Amir and I'm a Master of Architecture or Part 2 graduate based in London. And in this video I want to share with you my honest opinion of studying and working in architecture industry for the past 5 years and let you decide if architecture is a career for you or not. I want to categorize my experience under 3 titles of pre-university, university and after university. Before starting, I want to emphasize that all of my experience is based on studying and working in the UK architecture system, which based on the Royal Institute of British Architects consists of 3 stages of Part 1, Part 2 and Part 3. Let's briefly talk about all these 3 stages as of now because it is confusing for a lot of people. The Part 1 consists of 3 years of studying architecture in the UK education system, and you will be awarded with a Bachelor of Arts at the end of the course, which opens your way to study your Part 2. This is then followed by 1 year of professional experience. To start a Part 2 course at a university, you need to have completed your Part 1 and be ready to study 2 years of Part 2 in an RIBA approved architecture course. After completing your Part 2 course, you are required to have at least 24 months of professional experience in order to be qualified to register for your Part 3 course. The Part 3 course, however, is 1 year long and it's not a full-time course. You would typically have 1 or 2 lectures during the week, and then at the end of the course you will have to sit for different types of examinations, including oral examination, written examination and a case study. A lot of practices also usually support the Part 3 candidates in terms of their tuition fees. So now that we kind of know an overview of the architecture education system, let's discuss what you typically need to enter an architecture course in the UK. According to Bartlett School of Architecture, you need at least 2 A's and 1 B in any subject to enter the Bartlett. But more importantly, you need an extensive portfolio of creative work, which is what technically gets you to an architecture university at the end of the day. Some people also decide to spend a year in college to study arts and produce a good portfolio consisting of different mediums in order to apply to an architecture course. This is what I personally did before going to study my Part 1, as I did not have a portfolio which I could show in an architecture university interview. I have to say this decision actually helped me quite a lot, as I started to get a sense of what my creative journey in architecture school could be like while studying an arts foundation diploma. Your creative portfolio can consist of different works of art such as painting, collage, digital art, photography, mixed media, videography and many more. It just needs to be extensive in terms of the techniques and mediums of work you choose to put in your portfolio. And they don't have to necessarily be architectural, but it would be good to have some sort of architecture related works such as architecture photography, architecture collages, and 3D modeling in order to show your interest in architecture. A lot of people ask if they need to be good at math in order to be good in architecture or not. The easy answer to this question is a no, but I have to say it actually depends on the country that you want to study architecture in as well. In the UK, you don't really need to be good at math, but having a mathematical brain usually helps with a lot of things as you go along. So let's now talk about the time that you spend in university and what it's actually like to be there, and as well as talking about my own experience in the architecture school. Firstly, depending on your course, you would have a number of theory modules in the beginning alongside a design module, which will be your main module in the course. I ended up going to University of Westminster, and in our design modules, we were given a brief in each term and we were required to respond to the challenges of that brief in terms of architectural propositions. This could be designing a house for an artist or designing a school or anything that needs an architecture solution. You would think they teach you how to design in architecture school, right? I have to say that there is no such case at all. In fact, I don't think there is such a thing as teaching someone how to design. So you need to figure it out yourself by seeing the way other architects design. Learn their techniques as well as understanding their values and their way of thinking. Then you would have something called crit, which essentially is a design review every week or at least every other week, where you present your design progress to your own tutor or sometimes guest tutors and guest critics as well as other students. This is usually a quite stressful thing to do if you are not confident enough to be speaking in front of so many people. The other thing that makes crits stressful sometimes is the fact that your critics will judge your work based on what you have on the wall in front of other students. I personally got much better in dealing with the anxiety of being criticized in front of my colleagues who I considered myself in competition with a lot of the times. But eventually you need to deal with the stuff that gets thrown at you in the crits because you will be having them all the time in your architecture career.
Can I ask you a question before we say anything about this? If you put a monkey in front of a typewriter, it's never going to produce literature. My question to you is, how is a student, if they don't know what architecture is, in other words, in terms of its chording, its structuring, its harmonics, its rhythmics, etc., if they've never studied anything, you're going to get, to me, these kinds of results.
I have to say, I personally don't consider crits useful a lot of the times, particularly if you don't know if your critics are going to give you a constructive feedback or just want to tell you off in front of others. Crits can also lift up or drag down your spirits afterwards, depending on how they go. Some people tend to be much better at managing their emotions after crits, but I always struggled in handling mine. And I have to say, sometimes even my project got derailed as the critics pushed me in different directions and confused me in terms of what I needed to focus on next. Learning how not to get derailed quite easily and only listen to constructive feedback while ignoring the brutal ones is also an art that one needs to master in architecture school. Let's now talk about what awaits you after your architecture education and how much money you are likely to earn in starting years of your architecture career if you are in the UK. While you are in university, you develop a variety of different skills that open worlds of possibilities in front of you when you graduate. If you decide to become an architect, your route is pretty clear. You would apply for an architectural assistant job and you would hopefully land an offer from at least one of many architectural practices in the UK. I will make a video about the tricks that you can use for landing a good job offer that can make you and your application unique in the eyes of the practices that want to hire you. So subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for that video. If you have just finished your part 1, you are likely to be receiving somewhere between 20,000 to 24,000 per annum. And if you are a newly part 2 graduate, you are likely to receive somewhere between 26,000 and 30,000 based on the Royal Institute of British Architects. If you are a qualified part 3 architect, your salary will go up to 31,000 to 37,000 pounds a year if you have less than 5 years of experience. I have to say these numbers can go up and down depending on the practice that you work for and are not fully reliable in that sense. I have also received higher salaries which were outside the range of these numbers, but I can confirm that the numbers usually don't go far off from either end of the salary guide. Now, if you decide not to become a practicing architect after your education, you have a variety of other options and careers to choose from depending on your interests and skills. You can go completely outside the realm of architecture and start working on areas like UI and UX design, or you can stay quite relevant to architecture and start a rendering or 3D visualization company, for example. There are also other people who choose to become entrepreneurs and collaborate with people from other disciplines to work on new ideas in form of startups or idea-led ventures. The reason for this is mainly because when you go through so many years of architecture education, you develop a great skill set of hands-on skills as well as softer skills like public speaking, design thinking, problem solving, team working, and etc. And these are literally the best skills to have as an entrepreneur. There is also an amazing book called Architects After Architecture, which consists of 30-odd interviews with individuals who have chosen an alternative pathway in their career. I have made a video about this book previously, so if you are interested to know what can be done beyond the realm of architecture, then go and watch that video, as it will give you a perception of the possibilities ahead of you as an architecture graduate. Now, I want to share with you my own honest view of the architecture education based on my personal experiences and let you decide if this is a career for you or not. But before that, I wanted to let you know that I have a weekly newsletter called Sunday's Pivot Point, where I share my experiences of working in the architecture industry, as well as some pivotal conversations that I had during the week with some bright people, or the podcasts that I found useful. Link in the description if you want to subscribe. First of all, I have to say I'm not particularly a fan of the way architecture education is designed as of now. I feel the core of the current architecture education today has not really changed to become relevant to the times that we are living in, and it's very outdated. But I have to say, if there is one thing that I would suggest studying architecture for, is the fact that it opens your horizons and broadens your mind and perspective that you have towards the world. This can be also true for other art courses as well, probably, but architecture education has definitely gave me a totally new perspective to my own world. If you have someone around you who have studied architecture or arts, probably you can notice that they see things quite differently in terms of their meaning, their material, the story behind things, and their approach in solving issues in different scales. The other downfall of studying architecture is the fact that it is a very expensive course, as you constantly have to pay for prints and modeling materials and tools alongside books and resources. These expenses unfortunately don't get compensated afterwards when you go and work as an architect as well, if you compare an architect's salary to someone from IT industry, for example. So it's not also a lucrative business as well if you are looking to earn lots of money. But the good thing that I want to say about studying architecture is the fact that you develop so many different skills that you can then choose which one to pursue after you graduate. You have so much room to grow in a non-traditional way of practicing architecture than people who usually practice the traditional way. You can go and start your own creative business and develop radical ideas to change the world for better. In fact, a lot of successful entrepreneurs came from architecture backgrounds. I have previously talked about innovative startups founded by people from architecture backgrounds in another video, so I recommend watching that video as well to find out which big companies that you probably have heard of were founded by architects. This was a quick overview of the overall architecture education system in the UK and my own take on it. So if you found this video useful, please consider giving it a thumbs up to help it reach more people. And please consider subscribing to the channel to stay tuned about the next videos on similar topics. I hope you have a great rest of the day and see you in the next video.